Do you have a brilliant startup idea but are stuck in the launching phase? Are you feeling overwhelmed by funding, marketing, or just where to start? Don't let your startup idea stay grounded. Visit our website at eapla.com to schedule a Blue Couch meeting and launch your startup journey today.
Welcome back to On the Cusp. Matt Snyder.
Thank you, Dave.
Back with me for another episode. Man, we've been doing this for a while now.
We have. Who would have thought?
And you never know who's coming on, but today, okay, we've got SkyCoach. And Keith, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, you and I go back all the way to 2014 when you and a couple of guys said, hey, we're going to do this sideline coaching tool.
This is probably the coolest business in Shreveport that nobody knows about.
It is.
Like, it's such a cool idea and like current. I love it. I've loved it since
Keith, what is SkyCoach?
So at SkyCoach, the core of our business is we allow coaches to watch a play that just took place on an iPad on the sideline or in the coach's room. Traditionally, that was football, but now we're operating in more things like lacrosse and baseball and soccer and all these other areas. So in 2014, originally our goal was they have these cameras set up around the field. They're filming their end zone, their press box, and they used to watch that after the game. So originally our goal was get it in the hands of the coaches right after that play. So when the whistle blows, can they watch what just took place? And so we implemented that. We've been optimizing that for years. And then a few years back, we actually got into officials replay as well. So referees, think of the NFL, guys throwing challenge flags. We've got almost the entire D2 doing that right now. We've got a D1
So they're using your replay system in D2?
Yes, for officials replay.
How many high schools, you started in the high school market, how many high schools are using SkyCoach?
Right now we're at about 1,200.
What was your first school?
Oh, that's a really good question.
What was the first sideline SkyCoach got
So
on?
that's a tough one to answer. We tested, if the first team to ever test was Captain Shreve.
No way.
Yeah.
Let's go Gators.
Yeah.
And the reason being
hometown
is
technology and a hometown team.
The reason being is the head coach at that time was Coach Larry. He was one of my former coaches in high school.
Yeah.
And then Anthony McLean at Southwood, I played against Anthony as a kid, and we played together on the same team sometimes. And so we had been going out. There was Parkway High School had a phenomenal quarterback at that time, getting recruited by LSU. Yeah. And we were going out testing our technologies without showing a coach. We're just in the stands doing stuff, seeing if it worked. And then I had enough confidence at that time that it was going to work in 2013 that I messaged Coach Larry and Coach McLean. They were going to play each other. And I was like, hey, we've got this new technology. The National Federation of High School Sports had just changed this rule. Would you like to try it? And Coach McLean's like, man, I'm moving this weekend. I'm doing this, doing that. And Coach Larry was like, just come on. And so, that was, so Captain Shreve used it the first time that year. Now, as any product, afterwards, he, because I played for him, he's telling me that, Mo, this is the greatest thing ever. You really need to push to this. I later found out his defensive coordinator was so frustrated trying to use it because he couldn't find the plays he was looking for because we didn't have play numbers or anything like that he broke his iPad. He was so mad at it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You don't learn about those things till later.
Well,
but,
nothing like user feedback,
that's
right?
right.
So 1,200 high schools using your product right now. It enables, when the coach brings offense or defense off the line, they're able to go back, look at it right there. And you're also in the, replay business as well. Now, when you first went out, to market, you learned a whole lot. And the other day, somebody, now, used to have the big towers sitting in the end zone.
That's right.
Now you're tethered to unmanned aerial vehicles.
That's right. So, you had mentioned a product. We've been working with a company that they've got a tether system that's, about this big. It's got a 150-foot cable that connects to a drone, they're flying that drone up in the air, and it's providing continuous power to that drone. So a problem with drones is you got to pull them down every 20, 30 minutes because of the battery. But a football game, it's inconvenient to,
Right. You're
just
not gonna
stop
do
in the
that.
middle of it.
Right.
And so having continuous power to that drone is a big advantage to keep it up so that you don't miss a play.
Plus, there's not a safety issue of having
That's
a
right.
tower sitting at either end of the.
So what do you mean by
end zone.
tethered?
So basically, you've got a box with either a 110 outlet or a battery inside of it. Then there's think of a small, thin cable that's on a wheel that is going to go up with the drone. So as the drone flies up, it's unwinding that wheel, but it's tapped into the battery of that drone. So it's plugged into the battery.
So
and
it's coming from the ground.
coming
Yes.
from the ground.
It's
So
literally-
sort
and it
of what
can
you
move.
see like in an NFL game where they're
like
up
the
on
spider
Those are tethered
cam.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are tethered.
But they're tethered to where they move up and down.
I mean,
the
those
field.
are
In this
crazy
case,
at this point. I have Saints tickets, and like half the time I'm watching, like, how is this even possible? Those cameras moving everywhere.
I've got a unique story about that. One time they called me and they had a game in Vancouver at BC Lions as one of our pro team. They've got these spider cams. And they were like, every time that thing got close to our bench, we would start slowing down on our iPad. And it turns out it had nothing to do with that. It was something else going on. But they thought it was the spider cam blocking the signal. And so, but yeah, you get into
I mean, those are
scenarios like
crazy, like how all that works. So you're filming with drones now.
We film with everything. So you've
Okay.
got some states, well, a lot of states, drones aren't allowed at games. So having the tethered system has made that a little more accessible. So, you've got the FAA requirements, then you've got the states, then you've got the local district or whatever that's saying whether or not they can do these things. And so drones are definitely up and coming, but also PTZ IP-based cameras are getting pretty popular now.
So the setup of this, so does SkyCoach, if I'm a football coach and we're going to use this in high school,
Yep.
does the coach set all this up or SkyCoach? How does this happen in a game? This sounds like a lot.
That depends on the size of a school. So in colleges, it might be a SID or it might be a student manager. Even in high schools, you might have student managers. But at a really small school, like, Jaron Wilson that was at Woodlawn, he was the head coach and he would call me in the middle of setting it up. Or Anthony McLean used to be like
So
that as
you
well.
sell the product to the school,
Yeah.
and then they set it up, run
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Wow.
Now, most of them might have a video coordinator. If they're a much bigger school, they're going to have people that are dedicated.
So how
to these.
long does it take? Okay, it's before the game. How long does the setup on this take?
You're hitting a very funny thing. I call it a modern miracle that we have football coaches going out there and setting up a portable network to communicate from the end
that's
zone, from the press
crazy.
box to the sidelines, and it works.
I can't believe that works. Like, that's like,
So yeah, it's
It's got
so
to be
funny.
a pretty
It's
self-contained system.
That's right.
Yeah.
To be able to walk out there and just set a camera up, flip a switch.
because
okay?
a
But
coach is
Right.
not like wanting to deal with this. I was a track athlete at Captain Shreve, and we were a pretty good track team. And the coach was trying to win district as a team. And so he walked out to the 3 long distance guys and handed us a pole vault pole and said, go learn to get over 7 feet. I need some points. That's the way a coach thinks, like I can't
That's right.
imagine that coach going and
those-
setting up a,
It's the
Pretty
wildest thing.
self-contained.
And so if they want it bad enough and they don't have the people to do it for them, they're going to go figure it out.
so how many cameras does it take to do this?
Most high schools film what they call the all 22 from the sideline. That's up on top of the press box usually.
Okay.
And then what they call a tight or an end zone view. So in their end zone view, they generally want to be up like 20 to 30 feet in the air. Or with the drones now, they're getting up 100 feet in the air. And so what they're trying to get is a really good alignment view from the back. So how are they actually lined up on our players? Now, from the press box view, they're just looking at the overall shape and trying to get the all 22 kids on the field in that view at all times. Yeah. And
Now,
so
this
that,
is a very, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't recognize this, but your field is very regulated. Okay, you've got everything from the State Athletic Association all the way to the FAA telling you how to do that, and you got to be able to navigate that.
That's right.
And there's got to be a unique story in that.
It's actually pretty interesting. So just thinking of like the NFHS versus the NCAA versus the Canadian Football League or the NFL.
Now, are you still the
Yes.
system of choice for Canadian Football
That's
League?
right. Canadian Football League has been using us since 2016. Yeah, 2016. We're going into our 9th, is that 9 years or 10 years?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's
That's
funny.
awesome, man.
And they kick off in May. And so, yeah, we start up in May. We'll have the preseason through May and early June. Then their regular season
I
starts.
derailed you. Talk about the regulation.
All right, regulation-wise. So the NCAA, very interesting facts. Like in high school, it doesn't matter what you do technology-wise. They just have very simple rules, like you can't show an iPad or a TV to the field while they're out on the field. Off the field, you can do whatever you want. You can look at video, you can run stats, you can run as many angles as you want. But in college, they have very specific rules. The coaches can only have access to one press box view and one end zone view and one production view. So they can see the live broadcast feed, they can see the all 22, and they can see one end zone. And so that's in game.
So a coach
after a game, they might look at all.
Now, when
the
you say a
angles.
coach, you're talking about a coach sitting up in the press box.
That's right.
Okay.
Looking at an iPad.
Looking at an iPad. That's the one that's really looking at this.
So you've got two use cases in a coach scenario. One is I've got a coach that's looking every play. He's like, I want to see what that defensive end was doing. I want to see what their tight end was doing right after it happened, so he can make the next call based on certain things that he saw. But then you have the position coaches, like an offensive line coach, that he's not really looking play by play, he's looking series by series. So when the offense comes off the field, then they go through that entire series that just took place. Whether that was 3 plays or 15 plays, he's going to review that whole thing.
So he can literally have the whole team sitting there and he's looking at it saying,
Yes.
look, guys, they're pushing down on you right here.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. With the offensive line, as you can imagine, these are really big players, so it's hard to look at a single iPad. So in high school, they take them to a TV.
Yeah, I was
Because
going to ask you if you were still doing the big TVs on the
So in
sidelines
high school,
like
if they're
that.
trying to show an entire offensive line, they're going to watch a TV. Now in college, you can't have TVs on the sideline. You can't even have them in the locker room. And so there's these difference in variations no matter where you go. Texas, even though they're NCAA, they can do stats, they can do video, but they can't watch on the sideline. But it doesn't matter how many angles they do. So it's
Right.
So you've got to know the difference.
And that was always the big hurdle for you. You were fighting for the Texas model. Texas was slow to adopt this technology. Now they've done it, right?
That's right. So NFHS, which covers every state except for Texas, Massachusetts flips back and forth between NFHS and NCAA. But out of those 16,000 schools in the NFHS, that's all the states, Ohio, Florida, California. Texas has 1,500 high schools playing football. And so the next closest state is California with about 1,000.
1,500 schools?
It tells you the
Yeah.
population of those states,
Yeah.
okay, why they're so big, okay? They can have that many athletic.
Friday Night Lights, I mean,
Yes.
1,500.
So you get to a state like Louisiana, we might have 300. Mississippi might have 300. Arkansas is about that, 400. And so
Think of
But you're
that.
pretty much nationwide now.
we're nationwide. We even have teams. We'll randomly have teams in Croatia or South America sign up for our cloud version sometimes. But we operate in Canada and U.S. mostly. We've got several colleges in Canada. We've got the entire Canadian Football League, and we've got some high school and youth teams in Canada.
But it's
now
not
as
just
well.
football.
Not just football now. So like locally, Airline Baseball uses us. North Dakota Softball uses us. We've John Curtis, baseball, softball, volleyball, everything you can think of.
Now, do you
they're
have a
using us.
different software package for each sport?
Not at this time. So we've got a lot of college lacrosse teams that use us, but how many of them are there out there? And so when you start trying to justify building out the interface for these other sports, it's like, okay, what's the potential opportunity here? So most of them have been just using our football interface because they need reliable video. They can do favorites on it, and that's really,
Right.
they can create playlists just by using hearts, stars.
So
asterisks.
SkyCoach is a technology-based, cutting-edge technology company located right here in Shreveport. And you're out there on the road selling this product all the time. Does anybody ever ask you where you're from, or where is this headquartered?
I meet some very unique people. So you may or may not know, we had a CFL team in the early 90s in Shreveport,
remember
Louisiana,
that.
at Independence Stadium.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So when I'm talking to the CFL guys, they're like, yeah, I've got one of the old sweatshirts, or something
man.
from it.
You're probably going, hey, let me buy that from you.
So that's like a really cool discussion with somebody, in another country. And so, but then also I meet people like the commissioner for the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission, the PSAC, their D2 conference, football conference. He worked at Centenary. Our office is across the street from Centenary. So it's
That's
like, we
awesome.
get to talking, and then football has always been big in this area. And so there was a coach out in California. I'm trying to remember he was at Mud Scripps, or one of the smaller colleges out there, but he coached in Shreveport. He coached
cool.
it's just,
And it's
All roads
amazing
go
how
to
many
Shreveport.
people, when you're traveling, I was like skiing not long ago, and I was talking to people, and they're always, where are you from? And I'd say Louisiana, I think. And they go, well, where? And everybody has a Shreveport
a
connection.
Shreveport connection everywhere.
Like, it's crazy how many people know about Shreveport.
Up in North California, I'm on top. This is like 2015, 2016. I'm on top of De La Salle was a powerhouse in California. North California. I was on top of their press box, realizing, like 10 years before this, Evangel was out here playing these guys.
Yeah, I remember.
It's just like, it's the funniest thing. You coaching community. They unfortunately, a lot of coaches get fired. Everybody thinks, something's always going to be better. So they call it the coaching carousel.
Yeah.
But they're all over the place. One of the hottest coaches in Texas now, he's at Hutto. His father was a coach in Michigan. And he just took a chance. He's like, he saw a posting on a job board, went down there. Now he's like one of the top coaches.
Awesome.
So Keith, let's go back to when you really first got started. You had the idea, you were just piecing together commercial equipment is what you started with. What really convinced you that you could make a run at this? And you're not in an industry that doesn't have competition.
Yes.
Okay. So what really happened? What was the one point where you said, okay, I can do this in Shreveport?
So as I mentioned, we went and let Coach Larry try this. Some of it was just intuition. So it came because I was trying to use it. So I was coaching sixth graders at Caddo Middle Magnet, and you're trying to explain to a sixth grader that you're stepping wrong or you're doing the wrong thing. That's really tough. But if you can show them a video of it, they grasp that a lot quicker. And
I was just about to ask you, how long is it going to be before every youth team
started in youth. I was coaching sixth graders. And so I was trying to show them, and I was like, wow, how come high schools aren't doing this, or everybody else? Right. And so I met with a coach at Bird. I went to lunch with him. He was working with Red Ball, and so I got to know him, and because we were doing some other IT work with him. And I got to talking to him, and I took him to lunch. I was like, let me show you something and get your feedback on this. And so I showed him what I was doing. I was like, how come y'all aren't doing this? He said, because you can't. It's against the rules. We would have been doing it a long time ago, but it's against the rules. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I just kept using it for what I was using it for. And then like a few months later, something got the best of me. I was like, I need to understand what that rule is. I'm not just going to take his word for this.
Yeah.
And so I started Googling, of course, and I found out this was in the summer of 2013. I found out that spring of 2013, the NFHS had changed the rule. And so we started playing with it, me and one of my coworkers, Brandon George, which he was big instrumental in making this thing happen. We started playing with it out at the field at my practices and local high school games. And then finally I was like, we need to show this to people, at least get some feedback, because the biggest problem is feedback loop. You only have 10 to 15 games, and they're between August and November to get that feedback. If you don't get it then, you're going to be waiting
for
another
a year. Yeah.
And so it's like, we got to get this out there. And we got it out there. We got his feedback. And he's like, you're really onto something. And that was enough for me to at least come back and say, okay, let's at least build something small and simple that's a lot better than what we just showed them, because what we showed them was hacked together and just piecemealed whatever we could to get something working. And
so you had the off season.
Yes.
So you're preparing like you're a football team to be ready for the season.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we
you got to be selling.
We started building. I've got pictures of my whiteboard. I'm drawing user interfaces and trying to. Our goal was simple as possible.
Yeah, that setup's got to be key, because it's like you said, it's either a student team or the coach right before the game.
And that first year, all we had was a cloud version.
Yep.
So not even hardware. We're just dealing with the user interface to record with an iPhone and watch it on iPhones and iPads.
And nobody's exchanging film anymore. Now it's all online. You want to watch a game? The coach goes to, you give him access to the site, and he goes looks at the last game or the last 10 games.
Yep.
If that's the way it is.
It's really cool, because I remember when you were starting this, and Dave brought it up and was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to hear the update.
Yeah.
And that's been 10 years.
That's right.
It's
a bit of a long, rough 10 years. You know, in the 2014, we started selling. We're like, okay, we're going to build it and we're going to sell. We spent a few months building out. We started going to clinics around the country, meeting coaches, trying to understand, showing them, talking about them, you know, trying to run quizzes on them. But that first year, we only sold 30 teams. And none of them were in Louisiana until the last minute. And the reason why is we called every state association, said, hey, this is a new rule. Is there any chance it's going to get changed? Every one of them was like, no, we're full steam ahead. This is going to go. State of Louisiana, BJ Gazzardo down at LHSAA, he said, I'm against this. It's not going to happen in Louisiana. So we're sitting in Shreveport selling to teams in Oklahoma. And when you were asking about our first teams were some of the best in Oklahoma. Jinx, Bixby, some of these big-time teams up there playing football. And the only reason why is I didn't feel comfortable selling to anybody in Louisiana. And then all of a sudden them change the rule and I'm sorry, I got to give you your money back. So our first teams came from Oklahoma and Arkansas. Now, we did do some spring games like Bird versus Evangel, and that kind of what caught some fire here locally in Shreveport, because I was sitting up in the stands and everybody came to watch Evangel and Bird, right? This spring game.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm just watching on an iPad and filming, and I had a whole bunch of coaches around me. And in specific, Clint Hortman, who was at Calvary at that time.
He's a legend.
Hortman was sitting there, and I'm trying to catch it. None of them are that interested. But the Bird fullback broke away for like a 60-yard touchdown just straight up the middle, and every one of them were like, do you have that? I'm like, yeah. Hand them iPads, that's all it took.
Yeah.
That's all it took. They saw, right? This is 2014, spring of 2014, and they're looking on an iPad going, are you serious? You know, we wouldn't have been able to see this till next, couple of days.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
So so then when BJ Gazzardo come back in like July, he's like, okay, this is going to stay. So then we were in Calvary, Bird, Parkway. And
so when did this become your full-time job?
In 2016. So this was a side project in our bigger company. We're doing IT projects, writing software for companies, and doing things. We had like 30 TV stations using our CMS software. And we're doing website work, custom development, and this was a side project. But in 2014 we had 30 teams. 2015, we had like 250 teams. And so we were like, this is the moment. All right, we're going to spin this off. We're going to spin this off and we're going to go for this. Well, there's a $1 billion company that was sitting there. They manage everything after the game. They're called Huddle. Every high school in America uploads their video to their platform after the football game. They recognize that whoever captured the video in game could control where it goes next. So they had to come out with a sideline replay product. So in 2015, they came out with their beta model, and that just shut our sales down immediately. And we lost a lot of those 250 teams because they're like, Huddle's our vendor, we're just going to use them. Well, their product was pretty rough. And so most of them came back that year. 2016, they released their production version. We lost a whole bunch of them again. And so by 2017, 2018, we were winning teams back because they're a $1 billion company. They can't iterate. They can't innovate. They can't move as fast as we were moving. And so we were staying
And so these
ahead.
guys want to, they're going to beat the other guy.
And
They want to have the,
So we were iterating, innovating. And our big sell to them is, this is all we do. If you do not renew, we're out of business. So our sole focus is to ensure that this works for you. Huddle, this was just a afterthought. They're not going to spend any effort, money, time on this. And so that allowed us to stay in this industry all that time.
Dude, that's awesome.
And
That
start
is
to
a great
excel
story.
and start to find these other opportunities like officials replay and all these other sports, because we're doing baseball replay, softball
Well, you're the
replay.
perfect example. You got a great technology. You get into the market. You hit multiple hurdles, okay, along the way, and you navigated all these hurdles, okay, to find your niche in the market. And dude, thanks for coming.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Man, that was
Thank you, man.
fast.
Enjoy the podcast? We would love your feedback about today's show and who you think should be our next guest. Send us an email at info@eapla.com. Also, be sure to share the show and leave a comment on our social media post.